Like, I think it's important for people that are investing in content. If you can't hang, don't do it now. Like, if you're looking for like short-term results, if you're looking for ROI now, like a lot of startups I talk to, I'm like, hey guys, I'd love to help you, but this is something that's going to help you next year. If you're looking for stuff today, this is not the right channel, but I can guarantee you next year you're going to wish you started this last year.
Hello and welcome to The Right Podcast, your source for inspiration in copywriting and content marketing. Listen in as I interview experts in the field and share entrepreneurial stories along with practical content marketing and writing advice, all to impact your life and habits as a content marketer. Welcome to the show. Hello and welcome to episode 21 of The Right Podcast. I'm so excited to have Sujan Patel back on the show today. He was on my top shared episode of all time last year, episode 6. And to recap, he's known for being an internet marketer, and he's currently the co-founder of Web Profits, as well as a blogger and contributor to Forbes Inc. Entrepreneur. And Sujan is a speaker at marketing and tech conferences around the globe. So you're known for being a risk taker that pushes the limits, Sujan, and I love that you've focused lately on helping entrepreneurs grow their businesses. So tell us what you've been up to in the last year since we talked.
Yeah, so I've done a lot more kind of creating content and speaking, and I focus a lot on the common problems and questions I get asked from entrepreneurs and marketers. And really just, I try to share everything about the process and the details. I think there's a lot of that detail that it gets overlooked. And, I also have a handful of SaaS companies. So, along with kind of running the agency and helping others grow, we actually apply all of that same information, that same practices to ourselves.
Wow. Very cool. So you're kind of like the growth hacker at Web Profits? Yeah.
So I run the US business, and we do things a bit different than most agencies. We are very much growth focused and building kind of the modern growth or marketing team. So looking at not just like top of the funnel like traffic, and I think that's where a lot of like agencies or marketers focus. We also focus on obviously conversion rate optimization and getting most of the value out of that traffic, but also lead nurturing and that middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, and actually post funnel and activities you can do after you get a customer or a sale to help leverage them to market your business. I mean, it's also considered good business practice to treat your customers well, but we have a few kind of tactics and a framework around how to leverage those customers for growth.
Very cool. So today we are exploring a topic that is common grounds for a lot of content marketers, which is productivity and making ROI happen in content marketing. And we see it all too often at our agency at Express Writers, where just burnout happens, where people are so burned out from creating, investing, they stop too soon and they just give up. But, as we all know, content marketing is a long haul. So tell us some ways that you don't get burned out doing it and you stay productive.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think it's understanding what you're committing to. And what I mean by this is understanding when you're creating content and you're investing in content marketing, the time frame of which it's going to take to get that ROI, that you need to commit. I think a lot of people enter like, everyone's doing this, or this is something I read about, and they just go into it. But then they realize, halfway through or some point while they're doing this, like, oh, wow, it's not working as well as I read about or thought about. And, what the reality is you're not, content marketing is one that is compounding of interest and ROI. And it is, 6, 9, 12 months before you start to see really that magic happen. And so you have to invest into at least 1 year to start to see that return. But the other thing is when you're coming up, to avoid that burnout or whatnot, it's really understanding your customer, getting in their shoes. It's not about creating the most volume of content. Frankly, it's not even about creating a lot of content in general. It's really about creating that right type of content, that right amount, like the right quality, the topics you write about. And so, I urge people that are in content marketing, creating content, blogging, what have you, any form of content, whether it's video, audio, images, whatever, to focus more on the quality of content and not necessarily so much on producing content every day, every week, every month. Just focus on like creating one or two really solid articles that are the best things in that space, or the best article on that topic, or even the best topic for an idea for your customer or ideal customer. And then think about how you can do it again and again and again, and apply that repetition after success, not the other way around. Don't come up with a cadence of weekly and then try to apply success of things that are going to make that thing successful, because it doesn't work that way.
Wow, that's incredibly good advice. And I really agree with that, because we've seen the best results happen when you spend the most time, the most investment, whatever that is, design, writing, time, into just one piece, as opposed to like spreading that out. And, people are reading long form ultimate guides, even though we're in an age of a short attention span. So it's really interesting that people are looking for that biggest guide to their question, the top of the rankings. It has to be at that skyscraper level that Brian Dean talks about. So those are really good thoughts.
Yeah. And I think, like speaking of that, the skyscraper, ultimately you need to look at, I think when you're coming up with content, like you need to say no more than yes, and really focus on really that quality, whether it's the skyscraper or whatnot. I think design, I think the interactive elements, or kind of media, images, video, embeddable kind of media within an article, help it stand out. So keep in mind, words on a piece of paper are just words on words on a piece of paper, or like a Google Doc or a blog. When you add images, when you add context, or when you add more detail, it starts to really stand out. And so I always found the difference between you and your nearest kind of or closest competitor or article that is on that same topic or relevant about that same idea, the difference is actually the success. It determines the success. So if you're just kind of slightly better than something else, well, you're going to kind of just slightly get results. You're going to maybe get some traffic, but if you're monumentally better, you're going to continue to get ROI and revenue and actually get traffic and links and all that stuff. So like an example is, I've created lots of different guides and studies and data points. Those data points, I create information with data included, because a year from now, when somebody's writing an article on that similar topic, they might want to reference my article, my data, information from the article. So it keeps earning what I call interest, right? This is like content marketing is a savings account. You don't get rich overnight, but if you do it right, it does work.
That's really good. And a case study kind of what you're talking about. At our writing agency for 5 years, we just had 2 writing levels. We're not like a lot of the agencies that have, like 1-star, 2-star writers. So we had general and expert. And last year, we found out that expert just wasn't cutting it. People wanted really in-depth guides. They wanted to do things like hand us logins to a tool and have us create screenshots as we write. And that, of course, makes a very interactive piece of content if you can really picture what you're talking about to the reader and get all those details. So we launched a 3rd level called authority level. And that's like, the most expensive content we've ever sold. And it was a big jump, but people are doing it. And it's amazing, because that's where you have to be today. You have to be the best. And that's harder than ever to stand out.
Yeah, it's more crowded, and that means it's going to take a lot more effort. It's going to take a lot more time to stand out. But, it does work if you pay off. And And if you feel like you can't, like, I think it's important for people that are investing in content. If you can't hang, don't do it now. Like if you're looking for like short-term results, if you're looking for ROI now, like a lot of startups I talk to, I'm like, hey guys, I'd love to help you, but this is something that's going to help you next year. If you're looking for stuff today, this is not the right channel, but I can guarantee you next year you're going to wish you started this last year.
Wow, that's got to be the best argument. Can I use that?
Go for it.
So the next thing to talk about with you, Sujan, would be just a little bit about consistency, which is so important. But like you were saying, it's not just about volume. It's about the quality and how detailed you are and all of the factors that go into being the best. But talk about consistency with that. How can we keep up a great content marketing production?
So at the end of the day, it is all about consistency. If you are not top of the mind, you're going to be lost. You have to be consistently there. And the guys who have been doing it, the companies who have been doing it forever are the ones who are constantly on the top of your mind. Like look at Gary Vee. He's been doing it since Wine Library. Like that's like over a decade into it. Guys like Rand Fishkin, Neil Patel, they've been at it for a long time and they're consistently there. And so the great thing about content is you can be authority. You can build authority as a person, as a brand pretty quickly. Not saying it's going to bring you ROI, but you can get recognition and really build that name for yourself. But if you stop, then the next person is going to come in and kind of that they're going to be the new shiny object. So you have to continue. You have to be consistent. It is whatever cadence it is, weekly, monthly, every other month. Like Brian Dean creates content, once every quarter these days. But he's built an audience, and when he's built that cadence that, hey, I'm not going to publish just anything. I'm going to publish the best stuff. And he promotes content for a long time. So it's all about, at the end of the day, if consistent content, the quality of content, consistency are the two key factors of making content marketing work.
That's so true. So one thing we talked about briefly at the beginning was involving customer questions and just focusing on the audience, your customer, your reader, and the questions they have. And one way we've actually done that at Express Writers is we look through our live chat and we have 800 threads and people are asking all kinds of questions. And that's given us some really good topics. What are some ways that you involve the questions of your audience, your customer, and bring that into your content marketing?
One, I look at customer support and conversations I have with customers, and I just try to it's really a qualitative view of things, and I just look at what everyone's talking to me about. What are the people asking about? Even on sales calls, we're talking through what are common friction points, and I'm just taking notes of things people say. If I find myself repeating something 4, 5, 6 times over, that's when I know I have something that is worthwhile to my audience. Now, I usually just keep a running spreadsheet of all the kind of the commonalities that are kind of related to the to conversations I have, and then I cross-reference that every week or every other week. I cross-reference that when I'm going and deciding what ideas I should go after. I cross-reference that with popularity, like good old-fashioned keyword research. Look at BuzzSumo, look at Google Trends, and I'm seeing what topics my customers or people I'm talking to care about with what is popular, and the best of both worlds is what I start with.
That's really good. I like that you look for a repetition because that makes, like a FAQ, which makes for a great blog.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, there's probably hundreds of things you could write about that appeal to your customer base, but that alone won't fully move the needle. You really need to ensure that it is content that is also talked about or sought after, or people are looking for it. on the web, right? Because that way, if you just write content your customers are talking about, or potential customers, or things you're exposed to when in this process, you're only talking about you're only creating customer-centered content. When you combine that with validating the demand, you have now consideration content and middle of that funnel content because your customers like it. And you also have things that can generate something that can generate top of the funnel traffic or exposure.
That's a great strategy. And one tool, I was actually introduced to this tool by Tara Clapper, who's in our staff now. She introduced me to answerthepublic.com. Have you used that tool, Sujan?
I have not. These days, I have a slightly larger team that helps me with a lot of the details related to creating the piece of content. And so I am no longer doing all the research myself. I'm not putting in all the data and stats because it's such a big part of the process. And it's something that takes time. You have to read all these things. I'm coming up with the idea, the article, writing that information, including sources, but then we pass it off to our kind of researcher and editor who will then add more information. Then I'll go back in and kind of do that. And during that time, we'll go and we might reach out to people, experts. We might find data points. We might go and go after like Haro, Ask the Public. I usually just go directly to sources. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my process right now.
That makes sense. It's funny how content really isn't a one-person task anymore. So that cycle you described, that's very common.
It was, it usually starts off as one-person task. And then over time, it becomes if you can get it to work, you're going to need to you're going to want to get more people involved to help you scale it.
Very true. Very true. But yeah, a quick recap of Answer the Public for those listening. It's a really cool tool where you can just find topics that people are asking on Google around any keyword. So if you type in content marketing, you'll get a group of how, what, when, where, why questions. And then that leads to a stem of questions under each of those factors. So like, how does content marketing work? Or why does content marketing work for businesses? And you'll see all those commonly asked questions. And it's really cool. It's like this huge network that you just see that builds in front of you. It's a really cool tool and it's free.
Yep. Yeah, great. It's a great tool if you want. It's good for quick research, right? Like if you're going through it. It's one of the things I think everyone should incorporate into their process early on. And it's only going to help you make better content.
Right. Yes, totally agree. But while we're talking about tools, do you have some favorite tools for content marketing? And even when it comes to productivity, do you have any that you rely on?
Yeah, I rely on quite a few tools these days. I use, and I'm like pulling up my slides because I have I actually gave a recent presentation on like my whole process
cool.
of creating and of creating content. But, so let's kind of like talk about let's kind of bucket this thing into kind of a couple different categories. There's the, creating and the research and like everything involved in actually, creating the content coming up with the idea, and the research and what to write about. There's BuzzSumo, and I'm looking for popular topics. I'm looking for, what else is done well out there. And so when I have an idea and if it's everything else in that realm is just not done well, like I probably shouldn't write about that. I use Ahrefs and Moz, Open Site Explorer, and also keyword difficulty tools to determine what, the keyword to go after, the sites that are in the blogs or articles that are ranking well, have lots of backlinks. Again, I'm looking at success factors, and then SEMrush to do keyword research. I think the other tools too have a keyword research element to it, but I use SEMrush to again validate that demand. So between all of those things, it either gives me a checkbox I should do this, or it's like unclear that it's going to be an effective way, an effective idea, or it's going to work. So those are the tools I use to come up with ideas and validate. So I call it ideation and research. Then in terms of writing, I use Trello to like organize all the topics and as I'm going through them, because I have multiple people on the team, and even for our clients, like people need to review it, so they can review it, but only at that stage they need to. We create everything usually in Google Docs, and I use this new tool called Wordable, Wordable.io. It helps you take a Google Doc and put it into WordPress. So that saves me a lot of time.
Wow, I may have to look that up.
Yeah, check it out. And then I also, create content in many different formats. Like personally, I actually started creating content just by I wrote an outline and emailed myself like maybe 3 to 5 main points I want to hit. And then I just started talking about each of those points on my drive home, or when I felt creative, and then I would transcribe it, and then that would eventually turn into an article. And that was just because I really sucked at writing from scratch. And when I was writing, I was really just like focusing on grammar, going back and forth, and like just trying to get it perfect. But when I started recording audio, I just focused on getting my thoughts out there and then going back and editing it. So yeah, I still do that occasionally. And then for promotion, I use QPromote. I use Facebook ads. I spend a little bit on advertising. I use Outbrain occasionally, or Zamanta. Both are great tools. If you're using for Facebook ads, if I have an email list or my client has an email list, I'll actually go and upload that custom audience, either create a lookalike or advertise that custom audience, because those are the people who I know are fans and have opted in. And every part of my idea or every part of my content marketing effort includes some budget to do some advertising to get the word out. And lastly, Mailshake, which is again my tool. So is QPromote, both the tools I use. And frankly, we created these things because we wanted to use them, and we found other people wanted it. So yeah, so we use we email outreach for every single article. So either during the pre-promotion, when the article is being written, our research person is going out there and getting quotes from influencers, getting stats, data, input, either from companies or whatnot, and post-outreach or post-creation, like post-promotion. So we're going out there, letting people know we've referenced them. Big part of this is like doing content marketing is building relationships. And so I use email just to really just get that started. And so Mailshake, my tool, essentially helps you, use kind of semi-templated approaches and do emails in larger batches. So you are not just sending one-off emails at an individual email at once. It takes a long time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I may have to talk with you after the episode and get a list of those tools. I'm sure our listeners will want to check those out.
Definitely.
Well, I think that is all the time we have for today, Sujan. I really appreciate all these tips. Really, really good advice.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And it's always great to connect and see you grow over the last couple of years.
I loved having Sujan Patel back on my show today, and I hope that you did too. I think it's so important to remember that content marketing is a long haul, and you can't expect overnight results, but the long-term reward is huge. You can go follow Sujan at Twitter, Sujan Patel, and you can go visit his site at sujanpatel.com. And don't forget to subscribe to The Right Podcast for more episodes. You can do that in iTunes. And don't forget, I'm also on Spreaker, SoundCloud, and you can find all the show notes always at expresswriters.com/right-podcast. If you really enjoy the show, please consider leaving me a rating and review in iTunes. It will really help boost our show to reach more listeners. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you on the next Right Podcast.